Welcome back to the Jay's Fit Down podcast. I'm your host, Jay, and I'm here today with Will McFadden. He is the host of the Believe in Falcons Sports podcast, also covers the Falcons for the Falcoholics. So we're glad to have him on because, it's almost time for Falcons football, Will. So I wanted to ask you a few questions, man, about the team. I see you had a chance to cover them in training camp and everything. So we'll get to that and a little bit more, but thanks for joining the show today.
Yeah, it's great to be back on with you, Jay. I appreciate you asking me to come back on. Very excited to talk some Falcons football with you.
Always, man. Yeah, so speaking of that, Will, obviously, the Falcons last year moved on from Matt Ryan, brought in Mariota, drafted Desmond Ritter. Uh, you know, we all know how that went. But the final four games of the season, Desmond Ritter got to play and start, and he did fairly well for a rookie, and now it's his chance to shine. So can you just talk about, what have you been seeing from him in camp and, what the expectations are around for him and what's the vibe going into the season with him?
Yeah, I think that from a Falcons organization standpoint, and I'll start there and then I'll kind of move into, where I think Desmond Ritter has been and then the expectation kind of from the fan standpoint. But from the organization standpoint, I think that they, saw enough from him last year and the progress that he made in the four starts that he had to at least feel comfortable that they were capable of making the playoffs, which Arthur Smith said today after practice. In his mind, he has been trying to reach the playoffs every single year he's been here as the head coach. Like, that has been his personal goal, is we're reaching the playoffs, even though externally, last year there were some outlets that had them winning 2 games, right? But he's been in playoff mode since he arrived here in Atlanta. I don't think that they would have just stood pat really at the quarterback position unless they felt comfortable that Desmond Ritter can get them to the playoffs. And I believe that he can, and he's capable of that. I think that what they really value in him is his ability to digest a complicated playbook. It's something that he was really good at Cincinnati, being a lengthy starter there, somebody who operated in a pretty comparable type of system and executed it well and elevated the guys around him. That's what you kind of need in this type of scheme, in this type of offense. And I think that they think he's capable of that. Desmond Ritter so far has been inconsistent, and that was always kind of the knock on him coming out of Cincinnati, was especially early on in games, he was off target and missing kind of some easy throws, right? Just some hitch routes, like the types of throws that you give a quarterback to get him in rhythm. He's just missing. I've seen some similar things in camp where it's just you're warming up and they're running slant routes and it's too far in front of the receiver, or he overthrows kind of an end zone, like jump ball drill, like just these little misses that you don't usually see an NFL quarterback make. And I think that part of it is just it's early in camp. I've seen him make some excellent throws. Like, that's not to say that he's just missing everything left and right, because usually he doesn't miss that twice. Usually he is very good at correcting it, and that's something we saw from him last year in the preseason and in his starts, is he rarely made the same mistake twice. So I think you're seeing that those types of positives, the Falcons are putting a little more stock in, that the good is ultimately going to outweigh the bad, even though right now, as he is gearing up for just his second NFL season and his first as, the guy, that there are some blemishes. But I think that it's a long process to get ready for the season. He's doing the little things that the coaching staff wants to see, and let's give him the opportunity to improve.
Yeah, man, I agree. I mean, it's not uh, the unfortunate thing about Falcons fans is that they, as they want to. They see their quarterback that's supposed to be the guy, and he misses throws, or he's like, okay, man, banish him. Like, he's like, I mean,
we
on, man.
always said that the only way for I think Falcons fans, or at least a majority of the Falcons fans, to finally reach a consensus on Matt Ryan that he was a good quarterback, was for him to go away, and for like the 4 years after Matt Ryan was gone, for fans to see, oh, this is actually what like most teams around the league have had to deal with. that they haven't had to deal with since Matt Ryan has been around in 2008 is like, oh, your quarterback just kind of maybe will miss a guy who's open over the middle. Like, for all of the reasons people like to complain about Matt Ryan, like, the ball was on the money way more often than it wasn't. I'm not saying Desmond Ritter won't be at that point eventually, but right now you're seeing the last couple of years that, all right, the offense, you rely on that excellent passer.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And so now they drafted Bijan Robinson, of course, with their first round selection this year. So, what are your opinions on him, man, and how he fits into this offense, and how that could help Ritter as well, having that guy in the backfield?
Yeah, I think he's going to be a very big part of this offense, but just in a lot of different ways. I don't necessarily think that, he's going to be a workhorse out of the backfield. I don't necessarily know if he's going to be a true, like, just a 100% receiving back either. He's going to be a real X factor, and they're going to move him around. They're going to line him up in the slot, and then they're going to move him into the backfield, and then they'll start him off in the backfield, and vice versa. And it's like the ways in which they can use everybody on this offense is limitless. And Bijan Robinson, I think, is a huge part of that. Out there on the field so far, he looks every bit as good as advertised. He looks extremely fluid, and moves that don't even seem like they should be possible seem very natural to him, which is probably the biggest compliment that I can give him, is that, like, only the very, very best players make just like superhuman things look totally easy and effortless. I mean, we all were blessed enough to be able to watch Julio Jones throughout most of the entirety of his career, and he's a very similar type of player where you just see the Luke Kuechly play in 2015 where he's
Yeah,
sprinting downfield full speed, stops on a dime, comes back, then leaps over one of the most athletic linebackers, like mosses him, then turns around and sprints away from the defense. But like, you just don't see that from everybody, and it's only training camp. So I'm like way in hyperbolic territory here, but only training camp. They're not really tackling it all. However, the stop start ability, the cutting ability, the vision, the balance, the receiving ability, it's all there. I mean, it's the work ethic. He's, I think, been the last player off the field most days, if not every day. Today, also the same. So I mean, he's everything that I think the Falcons wanted, and that is something that they really focus on, is bringing in the right type of people and also getting what they pay for, right? Like, they're not, they do so much research to make sure that they have a great understanding of the person that is coming into the building, not just the football player. And it's clear that, with Bijan, they're not getting only an excellent and outstanding player, but also an excellent guy in the locker room and in the community.
yeah, yeah. He's a great dude and extremely talented, like you said. So now I was surprised with the pick originally when they made it. I'm like, okay, maybe they're going to go cornerback here. They're not going to draft a quarterback, obviously. A lot of people still hope they were, but they end up going Bijan. I'm like, okay, this is good. I mean, he's extremely athletic, talented. Physical runner. I like
And
the
fun.
juice. Yeah, and
He's
he's
going to be
fun.
fun. Like, at
Yeah,
the very least, this is a sport. It's an entertainment medium, right? Like, that we all forget about that sometimes because it's so life and death. The Falcons are infinitely more fun to watch with Bijan Robinson on the team. And, whether it's only for 17 games or they're, good enough to thankfully get to play more beyond that, I'm just excited to get to watch Bijan Robinson out there on the field.
yeah, me too. So speaking of offensive skill positions, now this time last year going to the season, and now as far as the Falcons skill group, the receivers pretty much, you know, what's like, is it? Do you believe that they're better at that position going into this year than they were last year, or maybe around the same? What do you think?
Yeah, it's funny. Like, Arthur Smith, and this is, I've been up there 3 times. I've heard him essentially make this point 2 of the 3 days that I've been up there, which means I'm sure that he's made it, 6 out of the 8 training camp days that they've had. So he's hammering this point home. He does not view this as like a group of wide receivers, and then we've got a group of tight ends, and then we've got a group of running backs. Like, everything is wide open to him. They're all different chess pieces, but they're on the same board, right? Like, everything is in play. They can move all over the place. And I think if you look at, because I am guilty of this myself this offseason, is looking at kind of the wide receiver depth chart and just be like, all right, yeah, they got Drake London. Yeah, they got Mac Hollins, who I kind of sort of know from last season. He was good. And it's like, but only real, I think, diehards are like, yeah, Mac Hollins, totally, like, locked in, got him. So beyond that, it's Scotty Miller, then it's Kadero Hodge, and you start really quickly kind of going, what else is here? Not only, though, do I think Mac Hollins is going to be really fun on this offense, I don't know if he's going to be 2016 Mohamed Sanu. Like, I don't think that that's going to be in the cards for him. I think they're going to ask him to he's going to be on the field, a good bit, I suspect, but it's going to be a very specific role that he has. And then he's talented enough to bring more to the passing game if they need him to. But by and large, I think Bijan Robinson is your number 3 receiver for all intents and purposes. I think Cordero Patterson at times is your number 3 receiver. I think Drake London and Kyle Pitts are your 1A and your 1B. Like, Jonnu Smith is as everything. Like, we don't need to even really talk about the 3rd wide receiver, because that's going to be the 7th man off the bench for Atlanta. So that's where it's almost even hard to kind of compare last year, or certainly the year before that, when they still had Calvin Ridley and Russell Gage and different. It's just changed so much, the different skill positions like around the quarterback, that we're almost having to relearn what to even look for in this offense. And that's why I'm so excited. And it's going to be like, if you like X's and O's and you like creative football, like when you watch the Chiefs and you see them just doing things that you've never seen before, that level of creativity is going to be on display here in Atlanta. It's just not necessarily going to be trick plays. It's going to be tricking with like everything that defenses have ever been taught about what a position is supposed to be and what those guys are supposed to do. And that's going to be fascinating, because we're going to almost have to invent a new language for, all right, what are 3 tight ends, like a 23 personnel package in empty with like all athletes out there on the field, right? Like, you could have Bijan Robinson, Cordero Patterson, Jonnu Smith, Kyle Pitts, and Parker Hesse out there and empty. And traditionally, that is maybe the heaviest goal line package personnel grouping that a team would carry. And the Falcons can just be in shotgun and go up and down the field. Like, what do you do if you're a defense preparing for that? How do you even describe that? So it's going to be so much fun to watch, but that's why, and that's a bad answer to just your question about how are the other wide receivers and like skill guys looking. But I hope I am getting across the point that, like, when you look at the running back room and you're like, man, it's so crowded in there. Well, like, if you're just using them to hand the ball off to, yes. But what if we said that's not just 3 running backs? Like, that's 1 running back and you've got 2 flex position players, and then, or utility guys, or, wide receivers in there, or what have you. And then in your tight end group, you've got Jonnu Smith, like, carried the football in Tennessee. Like, so that like, everything is on the table. And that's where we have to look beyond just, this is the wide receiver group, this is the running backs, and this is the tight ends.
Yeah, very creative, very, it's a variety. And these guys all have different skills and talents, which makes it all the more fun to watch, and it make it hard for defenses to plan for. So, you look at the Falcons the last couple of years. I mean, their offense has moved pretty well. Offense wasn't an issue; it was just the defense, right? So which brings me to my next point, man. The defensive additions they made in this offseason, bringing in Jesse Bates and David Onyemata, those guys, like, what are you seeing so far in camp from them and the defense as a whole? I see they've been making some plays from what I've seen on Twitter and stuff. So um, how's the D looking right now?
Yeah. No, I think they have, and I'm trying to, figure all of this part of it out in my mind, because generally defenses start out faster than offenses. And every year going into training camp, I tell that to people, and then I try to remind myself of that. And without fail, like 4 days into camp, I'm like, man, the defense looks really good. And like I fall prey to that line of thinking every single year without fail. So, and obviously, like this defense has not been like Hall of Fame caliber for the last like 4 years when I've had those
No,
thoughts
not at
before.
all.
So I'm trying to be like, all right, don't get too far ahead of yourself. However, this year does feel different in that it is consistent, but also everybody feels like they're getting involved. And it's the really starting up front with the defensive line group. And that is something that talk about David Onyemata. Grady talked today after practice and said one of the main benefits with David, and this is a testament to both guys and why I think this could be like a home run signing for the Falcons, because I think they're very similar players and they have very similar mindsets and work ethics and just like humility. And like, I think they're going to be a great tandem. But when David Onyemata got here, he was humble enough to kind of say, no, like this is Grady's team. We all have the respect, even though, like he's accomplished, David Onyemata's accomplished a lot in his own career and knows Ryan Nielsen and could be looked upon as like, I'm coming in here as part of this new class that's going to save the defensive line and all of that. He was like, no, Grady Jarrett, this is his group. Like we bow to him. Like he's the man here. But today Grady kind of returned that right back and was like, look, I learned from David Onyemata because he knows exactly what Ryan Nielsen is looking for in these drills and at practice. And so sometimes I'll go second in a drill and I'll see how David Onyemata does it and then try to mimic him. And so these guys are playing off of one another. And I think you feel the excitement of this group when you look around and you're Grady Jarrett and you're looking and you see, oh, there's Bud Dupree, there's Lorenzo Carter, there's David Onyemata, there's Calais Campbell. Like these are guys who have been in the league for a while. Like this is, you're looking around and you're seeing, all right, there's Iron Man, there's Captain America, there's Thor, there's the whole,
The
like
whole
these
Avengers,
aren't,
right?
yeah, these aren't the Teen Titans. And that's not to disparage like any other defensive lines or anything. It's like, but these are guys that we all know their name for a reason. And the Falcons now have kind of enough of them that you couple with some young players like Taquan Graham and an Ade Ogundeji and then Arnold Ebiketie and these younger guys who kind of can continue to pop and hopefully get better. Now you're cooking. Now you've got like 8 guys on your defensive line that you really like and are competing and making each other better. And that energy is really infectious. And the best defensive lines are like that. And so that is what I've seen up front that I really like. And you've seen, the coaching staff has talked about it at length. Zach Harrison is another player I should mention in there, the rookie. Like he would benefit greatly from that type of environment where you get veteran dudes who sense that like, all right, boys, we've got a group here. Like this is going to be fun. This team's going to be good. We're going to be a part of it. Like we've all found our like later on in our careers, like new home. Right. And you get kind of we've still got some juice left. Let's go. And a rookie being in that type of environment, like that's the best situation to learn in. And I think then you look at the secondary, and that is kind of where, and I think the best secondaries, the reason why I think they were potentially really high on Devon Witherspoon coming out of the draft is just that mentality of like that Ed Reed mentality, that dog where you're just like not going to give up any ground. You're not afraid to go out. You've got to be a boxer almost to play in the secondary. Like, yeah, I'm going to get hit. I'm going to take some shots in the mouth, but like, you're not knocking me down. I'm not going to get shaken. I'm not losing my confidence. I'm coming out and I'm going to, hit you with a haymaker and I'm going to pick off the next pass. Like you're starting to see that mentality cultivate itself, but also they're just playing really sound and really technically um, well. And I think a lot of that has to do with Jerry Gray, the secondary coach. I think a lot of that has to do with Jesse Bates kind of giving, I think, Richie Grant a little bit more confident. Richie Grant kind of coming into his own now in year three a little bit. They both made really good plays in run defense. Jeff Okuda, got hurt today, so obviously that could be a big loss. We don't know anything more on that. Arthur Smith wouldn't really give any information. They're just looking for the MRI, but was carted off. So it's an ankle injury. That's all we really know. But even if Jeff Okuda is lost for a significant period of time, Arthur Smith did say he likes the depth, and Clark Phillips, the rookie, has really made, I think, a really strong impression. D. Alford continues to come on strong in his second year. Cornell Armstrong got a shout out. Mike Hughes, who they brought in. So there's a lot of guys. This defense, I think, at the front with the defensive line and in the back with the secondary looks really sharp. The main question and could be the X factor for that group is really the linebackers. And
Right.
We'll see what that looks like. I think in the preseason we may, like, that'll be the spot that I think a lot of people start talking about when the preseason games begin. So I'm curious to see if that does come true, and if it does, like, what that conversation is like. But that's the defensive X factor for me is the linebackers.
Yeah, I agree. Troy Anderson played well his time uh, last year, and he did really good. And I'm expecting to see more of a jump out of him also. But yeah, I mean, you look at the defense, man. Last year, I did see improvement. They weren't perfect, obviously, but they made plays. I mean, they
Yeah,
made timely plays. Getting interceptions and uh, you know nice tackling, right? So it was compared to years past. I saw that hey, they're getting there. And now with the players they got in free agency, I mean, I can only expect that to get better. So
absolutely. I mean, that's they did a really good job, I think, not only adding some quality leaders to the front and the back in a David Onyemata, Calais Campbell, and Jesse Bates, but really these little moves that they're making kind of under the radar. They're constantly tinkering. But like a guy like Joe Gaziano, who I didn't even really know before today, he looked awesome out there. Like, he had a couple of plays with like the second team unit where big old number 99 is setting the edge and allowing somebody else to come make a pressure on the quarterback and force a bad pass. It's like they're just doing a really good job of raising the floor, I think, of this group. And it's almost under the radar because we don't know these names, but we don't know these names yet. And like this time last year, we didn't really know about Timmy Horn or Jalen Dalton or any of those guys. And like they kind of came on throughout the season and made some big plays and things like that. So you give a lot of credit, I think, to this coaching staff where they've said from the beginning, we're going to constantly be looking under every single rock, every single log to find answers and make our team better. And they followed through on that. And I think so far in camp, you are seeing some guys who, you don't really know or haven't heard of, and especially in the trenches. And that is where you need to do that. But they've done a good job so far.
yeah, yeah, for sure, definitely want to see an improvement in the pass rush as well. So hopefully that we'll get to see that come to light finally for this team. But just to kind of wrap this up here, Will, what are your personally, what are your expectations for this year, for this season? Like you mentioned, everything about Ritter and the team offensively, defensively. So knowing all of that, that being said, what do you see as a realistic kind of expectation for this team this year? How they do?
Yeah, it's no, it's a great question because we were just talking about this in the Falcolic kind of group chat yesterday, and it was just kind of like, hey, like what we keep talking about, like a successful season, or like if everything goes according to plan or what have you, like what does that mean? Like what does that look like to y'all? And my answer at the time and my answer now is it's kind of just like pretty cut and dry for me. I just make the playoffs. I don't really care how they do that, whether they do that backing in or rolling and cruising to a division title and, hopefully even beyond that. But I feel like the last 2 years, because expectations going into the season have been lower, that's the time for context. Like when you're not a good team or you don't have legitimate like, and again, Arthur Smith has said like their intention and their goal was to make the playoffs both years, and they damn near did it like both years. Like they've been
Yeah,
in the hunt. So kudos to them. But realistically, I do think teams have a sense of self-awareness, and you know whether that playoff run is going to be easier or harder, right? Maybe everybody expects that they can make it, but you know it's going to be a uphill climb, or hey, like wins that are back and this is our year. I think the Falcons are more in the latter right now. Like the wind is at their back, they feel better. So now's not the time for context, now is the time for execution. And I don't want to be coming away from close losses saying, yeah, but X, Y, and Z are making improvements. Like this is the time to execute on the kind of goal that you've had for the last 3 years and make the postseason. Again, whether that's at 10-7, 13-4, or 9-8, and you back in, or 8-9. Like I don't really care. Just reach the postseason this year. That's kind of my expectation for this team. And, I have to believe that's the team's expectation for itself.
yeah. Hey man, I'm right there with you. I just want to see this team make the postseason. That's all. Like
Exactly.
how it happens. Like you said, whether it's you're steamrolling in or you just squeeze in there, like just make it. And I think they very well could do it. I mean, a lot of people are hating on Ritter, man, and personally, I don't like it. I think the dude's good. I think
He's
he
going to
is
have
the guy.
moments where he's great. Like he's going to have some throws, I think, in week one where it's like, yep, got it.
Yeah.
Cool. I see it. Like, but he's also then just going to have some plays where you're like, okay, we gotta, it's patience, patience. Like
Yeah.
there's going to be
Yeah.
both. And we should just be ready for that.
Right. I mean, nobody's perfect. I mean, even Matt Ryan had his games, right?
Yeah. And
Right. He had his good games, bad games.
Matt Ryan came along in his own time. Like go back at his very first start. I feel like I don't have the whole box score right off the top of it, but he threw like 13 passes in that game. Like we like to think that Matt Ryan from jump was just like, and sometimes in his rookie year, yeah, he threw the ball 35 times, but like he made big plays in key moments as a rookie. He was not shouldering the entire offense. That's what they need from Desmond Ritter this year is make the big plays when they need to be made, when they're asked of you. You don't have to do much more beyond that. And you certainly don't have to try to do too much. Let the offense play within itself and you be the driver of it, but you don't have to wrench the wheel away from everybody and make this your own show. Like play within it and let the offense kind of bolster the quarterback. And that's what I think he's certainly capable of this year. But again, that should be the expectation.
Yeah, I agree. Just you do your part and let everything just play out the way it's supposed to. Like you said,
Yep.
execution is going to be a big thing. Something that I think has been lacking a little bit here in Atlanta for some time, but hopefully now we get to see that. And so that's just what I'm looking forward to, man. But well, thank you for coming on the show today and talking some Falcons football with us, and we're looking forward to the season, man. So thank you, man, for your time, and yeah, we're almost there, man. So
We are. It's right around the corner. But Jay, this was great. Thank you so much for having me on. Anytime, dude. Let me know.
of course, man. And you guys check out Will's work on the falcoholic.com. Great stuff there. And also on his podcast, the Believe in Falcons podcast. They do a great job there as well, covering Atlanta. So, yeah, man. And we will talk to you next time. All right. All right, man. Take it easy.